Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about a reaction to my reaction. So in one of my previous videos I had a very visceral, very, some people would say negative reaction to the loss of Blaze. Now I want to talk about that and what that means, the bigger context of the game, specifically in terms of what it means for redemption players. So um, you know, the loss of Blaze, I said the loss of Blaze in N26, which isn't actually strictly true. Um, we still have Blaze. The word is still on most of the flamer type weapons. The fire status condition is gone. And that's really for me what Blaze was. It wasn't the fact that you had a flamer, because it wasn't always just flamers that did it. It was basically any weapon that created this status effect was the thing that created Blaze, right? You get no panic, no chaos that's created. And actually, for me, as a redemption specific player, and we'll get into that in a second, that actually was the thing I think a lot of people specced into, and critically the thing that a lot of people were afraid of. It was I think the fear of this status was actually more dangerous or more effective than the actual status itself. Um, the sort of the takeaway is that there's a massive difference between N23 and N26, and I want to go through that now. I just want to sort of compare and contrast those two things together and then talk about what it means. So for N23, for the very few people that may not know, we had a situation where you would hit automatically with your flame template weapon. Let's talk about flame template weapons in the main here. Critically in N23, you didn't need line of sight, so flame templates were very, very good. You would hit, you would do the damage with whatever stat line that weapon had, and then on a 4-up you would create a situation where you pin automatically the person. On their next activation, they automatically take a strength 3, AP -1, damage 1 hit, and then they make a random 2d6 move and then try and put the flames out. And by stop, dropping and rolling, you add a 2 up to that, or 2 plus to that roll to put the flames out. So on a 4-up, they can put the flames out. And if they don't put the flames out, they essentially remain pinned, because that's all that they can do. The critical sort of difference there is that the damage that you take from the Blaze, strength 3, AP -1, damage 1, was different to the stat line of the weapon that you're shooting with. So you could have hit somebody with a heavy flamer, for example, strength 5, AP -2, and the fire itself does less damage. Right. And so the actual damage that is being created by the Blaze is actually quite low in comparison to maybe the damage that the original weapon does. In N26, it's completely different. So Blaze is still there, we've still got it on flame weapons, but you're essentially now getting a mechanic where on an X plus, so Blaze 5-up, Blaze 6-up, Blaze 4-up, whatever, you are doing an extra hit at the same profile. So if you're being hit by a heavy flamer, then that would be 2 strength 5 AP to whatever I'll put a stat line up of what a heavy flamer is, for example, here. So the wound die is essentially a fire check. It's not a second roll. You're not setting somebody on fire, and so it kind of makes, in my head at least, makes the Blaze effect work more like shred. You're just getting these extra hits. So actually, because depending on the stat line of the weapon that you are dealing with, you could actually do a lot more damage, because you're having multiple wounds created by weapons that have got higher strength, higher damage, potentially, maybe higher AP or have more AP. So there is a kind of a balancing effect there by saying we can effectively create more wounds on a target model by using this rule, but what it completely removes is the chaos-inducing status effect that it did in the first place. So I think for gangs or players that play gangs that had some fire, some blaze-inducing weapons, the odd flamer here and there, I don't think it really makes a significant difference. maybe smooths the bell curve out. You know, in the previous Math Hammer video that I talked about, you know, remember the bell curves. You know, you probably actually have a slightly statistically higher chance of causing more damage, taking more gangers out of action. Fine, you know, and that's in the sort of the way that they're trying to simplify and streamline the game. But for Redemption specific players, I really believe that it rips the heart out of the way in which most of them created their gangs. Myself specifically, and I think you know, I will speak for other people, and obviously Redemption players, please comment below. Everyone, please comment below about this rule. And I know that it is one of those rules, one of those status effects that is really polarizing in the community. Some people absolutely love it. A lot of people absolutely hate it. And I think that in the main, I think you're going to see a lot of people like the fact that this has gone, simply because it is going to remove this chaos-inducing effect on the game. However, for players like me, and again, the reason I think I reacted so negatively to this is that is entirely the point of me playing this game. Is that I don't play this game to win it. I don't play this game for anything other than the pure comedy narrative moments of I set 3 guys on fire with a juve with an exterminator underslung on a reclaimed shotgun, or you know, I took a swan dive off a high tower and killed somebody by landing on them kind of situation, right? Video on that to come. So I could lose a game completely, but the fact that I've created this super amazing, super silly, whatever it was, narrative moment, or had an equivalent narrative moment happen to me. Something explodes, one of my guys gets set on fire, or somebody does Blaze to me. You know, that is. I know I'm in the minority when it comes to this. So this is why my reaction to Blaze is probably an outlier. But if you go to the MO of the Redemption specifically, so all the way through from N95 through N17, N23, Redemption have been my core gang. If you look at their MO, it's kill it with fire, purge it with fire, fire will set you free. You look at the Redeemer comic, the guys with the headgear where they have flames everywhere. Fire is everything to the Redemption, and so by removing fire, effectively removing fire, yes, okay, there is a Blaze rule, but it isn't Blaze. It's in my head, it's fundamentally shred. By removing that from the game, it feels very much like you are absolutely cutting the heart out of the way in which these gangs operate, build, grow, etc. Now, that is to say that we don't know the specifics of the proposed, suggested, rumoured journal that will be appearing for House Cawdor. We know from seeing the contents pages for the Escher gang and for the Goliath gang that there are these very specific gang lists that allow you to spec into a specific style of play. So, like the Chem gangs for the Escher, the Vatborn gangs for the Goliath, for example. So, one can assume and project that there will be something for the Redemption specifically in the Cawdor book. Now, I have absolutely no insider knowledge here. This is all just projection, conjecture, rumours and lies. To steal Valrak's term, all rumours are lies until proven true. Thank you, Valrak. You have to... I'm on some copium here to say that they're bringing something in for the Redemption that is going to address this gaping hole, and I don't think I'm being hyperbolic in saying it's gaping, because it is a fundamental core part of the way that the gang operates. And by removing that in the current sort of rule set, kind of what's the point of the Redemption? I mean, and I say that genuinely, with this sort of saying, you know, if you're saying that all they're doing now is they've got a bunch of short range weapons that aren't actually creating this chaos, is there a lot of point in taking a lot of template based flame? There might be a point of taking a lot of longer ranged ammo based sort of shotgun rounds or whatever it is that create that flame effect. And that isn't to say that there are other weapons like the Volkite Orus or other weapons, for example, that do this. So, you know, I'm not saying flamers and a blaze is a bad thing, is not an option. It's just specifically for the redemption, I question the validity of the gang as it stands today. And obviously we will readdress this when things like the journal come out and when we've played a little bit more. I'm recording this today, the day that the rules are kind of officially out, and obviously I will not be getting them for a couple of weeks because I'm literally about to leave on a trip. So I'll be using all of the resources that have been made available to us through the internet. But I think this is an opportunity to start a conversation around what people think, how they think this is going to evolve, but what does it mean for the redemption going forward, and how do we think that this might or could be changed. Now, here is my sort of opinion on how this could be modified, or how they might have done this. So imagine this is a hypothesis where take the N26 rule that we have today. So you require template weapons are a shooting attack and therefore require line of sight to hit. So you take that rule and apply it to everything, which they've done, but keep the blaze status effect. So what you're now saying is that you are changing the effectiveness of the flame weapons from N23, because before in N23, like I said, you didn't need line of sight to hit. Now you do. So you're reducing probably up to maybe 50% the number of gang members that are touched by a flame template that isn't blind fired anymore. And then obviously if you keep that status effect of saying I am going to roll a 4-up to catch somebody on fire from the fact that I have been flamed, you are reducing that down. So only 25% of the potential hits from previously are going to be set on fire. You could even go as far to say only those hits that wound have the chance of causing the blaze effect. So if you've got a strength 3 flamer, it might be that they don't actually wound and therefore don't set people on fire. So you could have modified this right the way down to actually keep that status effect, but actually virtually stat hammer it out of the game. But of course people counter this by going, oh no, this is all about simplification and this is all about making the game easier to play, quicker, etc., which I counter with, well, sure, but you've introduced extra mechanics for initiative in combat, you've introduced extra mechanics for strength tests in coup de grace, and so in some areas they have simplified the game, and in other areas they've made the game more complicated, and so there is a real asymmetry in why and how that's been done. And I really don't, other than the fact that obviously this is a status effect and it has much longer lasting effects, it's tokens you have to keep remembering, and it does this cascade into they didn't want to create another token, but they made web tokens, so I don't know. So this is really just my hypothesis saying I think there was absolutely a way that you could have kept this in the game, and it could have been even less of an effect that you have today, but there's still that reason to build a redemption, specifically redemption gang around it, but then the flavour's still there, the heart is still there in the game as a result. Anyway, that's really all I wanted to say. I'd love to know your thoughts. I think this is, as I said, this is absolutely a conversation that needs to happen. And I think all good arbitrators are probably going to look at this and maybe make their own opinions and judgments on what they're going to do going forward. I know I'm in the minority, and I know that the vast majority of people are praising the Emperor and the Omnissa about the loss of this particular status effect. And so I guess this is just a case of me having to suck it up and get on with it. Anyway, with that, I'll finish. Thanks again for listening. I'd love to hear your comments below, and I'll catch you in the next one. Hey, so you made it to the end of the video. I really appreciate you for that. Thanks for listening this long, and please like, share and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.